Welcome to my channel, ketomealsandrecipes.com. There are many variations of a classic peanut butter cookie, but today I'm going to show you how I make my favorite peanut butter cookie, my peanut butter and jam sandwich cookies. They're absolutely delicious. I really like this version because it combines the taste and texture of a classic peanut butter cookie with my favorite jam, my seedless raspberry jam, which I made prior to making this video. Please remember that I always post the links to everything in the description box. Okay, it's time to get started. The macronutrient ratio for these peanut butter and jam sandwich cookies is 2.4 to 1 with 6.1 grams of total carbs, 2.8 grams of soluble fiber, 0.6 grams of insoluble fiber, resulting in 2.8 grams of net carbs per very tasty sandwich cookie. By the way, this recipe will make 28 sandwich cookies. Here I have assembled all the ingredients I'll be using on this recipe. As I mentioned, before making the cookies, you have to start by first making the sugar-free raspberry sauce and seedless jam. By the way, if the raspberries are in season, please use your local fresh ripe raspberries. Otherwise, it's perfectly okay to use a good quality frozen raspberry. They also work. I would make the jam the day before, and that's because I want the jam to have enough time to set properly. Having explained that, it's now time to make my peanut butter cookies. I begin by placing a fine mesh sieve over a large mixing bowl, to which I will drop in the almond flour, the lupin flour, the granulated sweetener, my gluten-free baking powder, and very finely granulated salt. Get your whisk and stir to sift the ingredients. And when all of your dry ingredients have gone through the sieve, if you see any larger granules in your sieve, just drop them in. The purpose of the sieve was to aerate the ingredients and to break up any large clumps. Lastly, use your whisk and stir everything together to make a nice homogeneous mixture. In a separate bowl or the bowl of your stand mixer, to which I attached my paddle, drop in your peanut butter. Here you can use the smooth peanut butter, but I actually prefer the crunchy because I think it adds a lot to the texture of this cookie. But do whichever one you prefer. Also, drop in the unsalted room temperature butter. And next is the maple extract. I'm going to give my egg a light whisk and drop that into the bowl. To combine these ingredients, I'm going to start on low speed and beat until all these wet ingredients are well combined. At which point it's time to just simply start dropping in your sifted dry ingredients. Now it's time to increase the speed to medium and beat until everything is very well combined and you have a nice homogeneous dough. If you try to handle the dough at this point, you'll find that it's very soft, much too soft to actually make the cookies. What you should do is cover the bowl with a lid or with cling wrap and refrigerate for about 1 hour. This will harden the dough and make it much easier to use a 1 tablespoon ice cream scoop to scoop out your dough, which by the way should be about 26 grams or about 0.9 ounces. That's for one large dough ball, but we are actually going to take this one dough ball and divide it into equal halves of 13 grams or 4.5 ounces. But if you want to do it as a one step and you happen to have a 1/2 tablespoon size or 13 gram scooper or measuring spoon, scoop out cookie dough and then roll it into a little ball. Having done that, transfer the dough balls to a parchment lined baking sheet, but do leave enough space between each of the balls because you're going to flatten them and they might expand a little bit while baking. The best way that I have found to get consistently nice cookies that are about the same size and thickness, I begin by placing a small square of parchment on top of each of the balls and then flattening the cookie into about a 3-inch or 7.6 centimeter diameter round. I found that using the bottom of a glass or a 1/3 size measuring cup worked perfectly. And it was really fast to do. The next step is to use the tines of your fork and deeply score the surface of half of your pressed dough discs. Press it in one direction and then at a 90-degree angle to make a cross pattern, which is what classic peanut butter cookies have. The reason we're only doing half of them this way is because these will be the tops of the cookies. The bottom half doesn't need to have any scoring. Now that you know what to do, just repeat until all the cookies are formed and scored or left flat as I've explained. Here are my prepared raw cookies, and it's time to transfer the tray into the middle position of my preheated 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 177 degrees Celsius, and set your timer for 10 minutes if you want the exterior to be firm but the middle to be soft, or 12 minutes for a little bit crispier cookie. When the cookies are done, remove the tray from the oven and let the cookies rest on the cookie sheet for 15 minutes. They're too fragile to move at this point. After they have rested, use a spatula to carefully transfer the cookies to a wire cooling rack. You want the top and the bottom to cool evenly. And you want the cookies to be completely cooled to room temperature before you add the jam. Now that the cookies are cool, it's time to begin scooping the jam and positioning in the middle of the unscored or bottom portion of the cookie. Then get one of the scored cookies and place it on top of the jam. Pick up your cookie and very gently press in the center of the top and bottom, and this will help the jam to spread to the perimeter. You want to press just far enough so that you can see a very light rim of the jam, like this. I'd like to actually make a suggestion here. Although you can assemble all the peanut butter and jam cookies and store them in an airtight container and place it in your refrigerator for about a week, I would highly recommend that you only assemble enough cookies for the day you want to serve your cookies and perhaps a few extra for the next day. The reason for this is this recipe has no desiccants or preservatives in it. So if you assemble everything all at once, you might find that after a few days, your peanut butter jam cookies are going to get very soft and kind of soggy on the center. But what I like to do is I gather up all the cookies I haven't used, put them in an airtight container, and keep them separate from the jam, which I have in another container. Then, on the day that I want to serve some more cookies, I take them out of the refrigerator and assemble them as I've described. And in this way, my cookies don't get soggy. However, if you're not going to be using these cookies in the next week or so, an alternative thing you can do is to freeze the cookies. Frozen, they will last for several months in your freezer. And I'll be making a lot more cookies in the near future, but if you have a cookie that you particularly like, please leave a comment and let me know what the cookie is. I'm always looking for inspiration. As always, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch my video. Your time and your support mean a lot to me. And if you like what I do, please share the channel or video link with someone you think might also enjoy my recipes, and come back when I post my next video. And I'd like to wish you and your loved ones a very happy and healthy day. Cheers!